Heyo everybody, Haku here with HaQ&A 79. So this is the video if you're new to the channel coming in for this anime or this anime season, everything like that, where I just discuss some general things for the week and discuss topics from your comments and stuff. So and answer questions, things like that. So the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to talk about general stuff here just for a second before I get into doing each series that we have questions or topics on or whatever, section by section. And I'll put timestamps down for that down in the comments as always. So yeah, there's that. So starting from the beginning, I'm sorry this is up on a weekend rather than on Thursday when it should be. But the general reason why this week is because I've had a ton of audio troubles, and I will probably throughout recording this video be looking down at my my little preview screen to make sure that my audio isn't messing up throughout the entirety of this video. Just because I've had some audio issues and it took me a while to get things fixed, and that ended up pushing some videos back earlier in the week, which took away time I had to work on this. So with the exception of this, things should be back on Thursdays, and it should be every Thursday. I know things get crazy sometimes, but hopefully I'm just trying my best to get this back on Thursdays as normal. Also soon, like I had been saying, I really do kind of sort of need to start a Patreon at some point. But I've been putting that off because I've been putting all my efforts into work on actually making videos. When I have some spare time, I will be working on that, and I'll have it done soon, but just know that I'll have a Patreon eventually. And I guess some things that I thought about, because I had a bunch of you commenting on things that maybe you think would be good suggestions for a Patreon. Two things I thought of is, if I do get better equipment and I get good enough stuff to be able to stream, I think it'd be cool to do a couple live HaQ&As here and there, maybe one a month or one every 2 weeks, where I just take questions and stuff from from the patrons and stuff live, or maybe figure out some way to do something like that where we can just discuss or talk or whatever. And I'll throw it up on the channel for everybody. I don't want to lock anything behind a paywall. It'll just be like, it'll be live for patrons, and then anybody is free to watch it. Another thing I thought about, of course I said before, is just every month have Patreon pick, or have the patrons on Patreon pick a series, and I'll do a review of that series or a read through of that series or whatever it is. I'll just have you all come together and pick something one month, and if more people are saying one thing one month but you still want me to do the other thing, I can just handle it the next month. So that'd be another good thing. Another general thing though, I am loving this anime season. I think last time I did a HaQ&A, I had just watched the first episode of everything that aired this season, I think, or everything I was going to watch that aired this season. So we're a couple weeks in now, and I've been keeping up with a lot of shows. I've really enjoyed this season. Other than the 3 I'm covering, which all have sections in this video, yeah, if you haven't checked the comments for the timestamps or anything, the sections for this video, I'm going to have one for each of the 3 anime I'm covering, one for Boku no Hero Academia, one for One Piece, and then pretty big sections for Magical Girl Raising Project and for Tower of God. Tower of God's always a long section. In Magical Girl Raising Project, I said I was going to do a big limited discussion here, and in addition to the limited discussion, I want to talk about a bit of what I'm excited for going into JOKERS. But yeah, anime this season. Other than the 3 I've been covering, I've really liked a lot of the comedies this season. There have been a lot of good comedies. I like Anime Yell a lot. I especially like, well, I don't know if especially, I really like Uchi no Maid ga Uzusukiru a lot too. It's got really good production quality. Maybe it's not as funny as some of the others, but I still think it's really good. And my favorite, one of my favorite for the season in general, is probably Tonari no Kyuketsuki-san. It's just a really funny and good show. And as far as non-comedies go, you got the Kimi ni Naru is Shoujo Ai. I love it. I always love Shoujo Ai. And in addition to that, I suppose there's Radiant. Radiant is one of my favorite this season. It's so underrated. It's a shonen based on a French manga, and it is really, it reminds me a lot of like Soul Eater and Fairy Tail, and kind of like early that's not really early shonen, but shonen that are like that, kind of the non-big three shonen that were big in the mid 2000s or late 2000s, the knots, and kind of early versions of the big shonen, you know, like early One Piece, early Naruto. It kind of reminds me of that. I like it a lot. Anything other than that I'm really enjoying? There's probably more shows, but I'm forgetting about them. SSSS Gridman is a pretty popular one. I wasn't much into the first episode, but I feel like it improved. I like it too. Release the Spice. A few shows that I really like. Yeah, other than all that, that's just it. Just wanted to talk some general stuff for a second before I jump into talking about each section. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and start talking about Tensei Shitara Slime again now. Alright, so now we got some a bit of talk about Slime again. First up, Nicos Hits had Overlord. A guy gets reincarnated as a skeleton. How not to summon a demon lord. The guy gets reincarnated as a demon. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Guy gets reincarnated as a slime. So I'm a spider, so what? Girl gets reincarnated as a spider. Monster. Guy gets reincarnated as a goblin. I begin to see a pattern when it comes to isekai. No, there are so many more weird ones. Because I love, after Slime again and all the popular isekai, there's a lot this season. Or isekai and fantasy. After all that this season, there's been a lot of people posting these just weird, obscure light novels and manga that are so great about all the different things people are being reincarnated as in isekai. And I'm really excited for the anime for So I'm a Spider, So What. I haven't read the novel I believe it's based on. I think there's a manga too, but I haven't read the novel. But I'm really excited for that one because there was a PV out for an anime for it. I don't know when the PV was put out or when the anime is actually supposed to be happening, but I liked the PV a lot, so I really want to see that get an anime. And also there was one about a guy's mom in an isekai, like it's a mom isekai. And they just recently announced an anime for that, so when that comes out, I'm totally going to be watching that. That seems like so funny and creative. And of course, anime moms, yes please. Oh, and also you brought up Overlord. I think I want to watch Overlord, probably on my own time, unless that's one of the things that people want me to do as the monthly Patreon video is to review Overlord or something. Because I really want to get into Overlord. It seems cool. A lot of people that I know and kind of respect their opinions on things really like it. And one of my friends just recently talked about how they got into it and how they're really enjoying it. So I do want to watch Overlord myself. And in addition to that, sorry if I mispronounce your name, because I have no idea how to pronounce it if I'm to be fairly honest. But Daipayan Dutta or Dutta, I'm not sure. I want to say Dutta because too much anime, too much hearing Japanese. But it could be just Dutta. It could be as simple as that. But Daipayan Dutta. A bit of a long one says, I love your reviews and I'm happy you're enjoying this series so much, and to answer some of your queries, the Armosaurus that was mentioned here is the second monster that Rimuru killed in episode 2 while mimicking the Black Serpent. The three dwarves that Rimuru saved with his potions are brothers and are unrelated to the guard captain Kaido. Kaido's the younger brother of the blacksmith Kaijin, but they're very close, almost like brothers. The item that Rimuru ate from the cave was magic ores, but what he showed in this episode was a cluster of magisteel core, which were magic ores that were processed inside Rimuru and purified and modified into the magisteel cluster. The minister that you got confused here was the minister from the kingdom of Brummond, one of the human kingdoms. And lastly, Rimuru can make copies, but for that to happen he needs the original thing, which he can't make because he's not a skilled blacksmith. And he also needs the materials to make the items, so technically he is dependent on many things, so his ability to copy isn't too broken. Sorry about the long ramblings, but I was a bit hyped and all. As someone who's read the source material, and by the way, the series gets a lot darker and gory as it progresses, so you better brace for it. Keep up the solid work, man. Thank you, and thank you for letting me know all that. And don't worry about long ramblings or long comments, it's very much welcome here. I always love reading everyone's comments and responding to everyone, or at least trying my damnedest to respond to everyone. And even if I don't respond, some comments are not really the kind that are looking for a response. Just know that I'm reading everything and I enjoy all your comments. But yeah, long comments are totally welcome on the channel. So I went back and rewatched some of episode 2 a few days ago, and I did notice that about the Armosaurus. I was like, that name sounds like the same thing I just heard in the most recent episode. And I would say that all the snake dismemberment and the wolf beheading in episode 2, I believe, they're pretty good indications, or that might, actually, I think that was episode 3. And the wolf beheading, yeah, I think that was early episode 3. They're good indications that the show is willing to just casually throw out some gore, at least to a certain extent. There's probably a certain extent they wouldn't go to. I mean, they comedically censored the one melting, was it the spider he melted, I believe? No, the spider was the one that he freaked out and was stabbing. I think it was the centipede that he melted. So they're okay, at least to some extent, to throw out some gore. But that's it for Tensei Shitara Slime again for this week's HaQ&A. Of course, if there's anything else you want to talk about, or anything you want me to bring up next week, of course, just comment down there or tell me wherever. So yeah, time to move on. Next up, we got a section for Boku no Hero Academia, and I am loving the current arc. But Brain Fluid said, this arc is so good. Class B, unexpected Hawk stuff, unexpected Todoroki family stuff. We're going to get more of the Vestiges, Shinso, and a lot of other characters being developed more. We've had Tokoyami, Momo, and now Todoroki and his team. And yeah, my response is I absolutely love the current Boku no Hero Academia arc so much. It is so good. I love tournament and battle style arcs. These kinds of tournament and battle style arcs are like totally my favorite in My Hero Academia. Plus, we're getting so many basically new characters developed. We've had these characters from Class B around for a while, but we've gotten like no development for them. So they're pretty much being introduced for the first time and given real development, which I love in general. When we have a big cast and all these different characters are getting developed, I freaking love stuff like that in any kind of series. Then ML, responding to my last video when I brought up that there were some people complaining about the arc, said, not sure why people are complaining. The series is called My Hero Academia. And that's right, because like I said in the video, we have had the same setup for My Hero Academia all the entire series. You can't be surprised that we're having a class arc or a training arc. Ever since the beginning of the series, we have a school arc and a fighting villains arc. A school arc and a fighting villains arc. We had Izuku getting into UA, then we had the USJ attack. We had the sports festival, and then we had the Stain arc. Then we had the exams, and then the sort of training camp Bakugo rescue arc. And then from there, what did we go from there? Oh yeah, the provisional license test. And from there into the internships. And then from the internships into the cultural festival, and from the cultural festival into the pro hero arc with Endeavor, and now we're back into yet another school arc, so we're going to be getting another villain arc after this one. It's been on that same pattern through the entire series, and looking at all those different arcs, yeah, the villain arcs are good, and I would say my favorite arcs are probably the Endeavor Pro Hero arc, the Stain arc, and of course the training camp / All for One, that arc. Those are some of my favorites, but then again, the sports festival, the cultural festival, the semester exams arc, some of those school arcs are like kind of on par or better than some of the villain ones. So some of the school arcs are some of the best ones. But another response I had for that was people seem to forget that there's a lot of people out there that are just like, they don't want any kind of story, they don't want any kind of development, they just want fighting, explosions the whole time with no actual story. And people tend to forget that Naruto did that. Naruto's like whole last arc was like years of nothing but fight after fight after fight, and for the most part it was the worst arc and like lost a whole lot of readers. and just generally wasn't very good. So yeah, that's happened, and you could kind of say the same about Bleach's last arc, though that arc was a mess for a million reasons. But yeah, that doesn't work. And I see these kinds of complaints with like every shonen that I watch or read. So I kind of expect it. And one thing I brought up is I was like, Dragon Ball is basically all fights with no development for the most part. And I'm not like huge into Dragon Ball after like not being a kid anymore. I watched it a ton as a kid. But I'm sure even Dragon Ball, whatever is going on now, I guess the Super manga, the Super anime just ended. I'm sure even Dragon Ball gets complaints like that. But yeah, mostly just saying how much I love this arc this week. But that's it for the Boku no Hero Academia section. Next up, we have a really, really quick Index 3 section, Toaru Mijutsu no Index 3. It's only one comment, really, and it's Aldnoa.0 2014 A/Z24, and I think I threw this whole thing in as an entire section just to say that I'm really happy with how much everybody seems to be excited for Index 3 and how much everyone's been so positive about it on the channel. And that goes for the other two anime I'm covering as well. It's just that a lot of the comments weren't really ones that were like discussion type comments, you know? But Aldnoa said, I've waited for this for so many years. I have no idea that you watched this anime. And also, I'm pretty sure Aldnoa.0 2014 A/Z24, I'm pretty sure they were my first commenter ever. So they have been with me for years. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, it's been my favorite series for years now. I first watched it in around 2012, 2013. I watched it either as Railgun S was airing, and I marathoned it and then finished Railgun S while it was airing, or I watched it before Railgun S was through, or before Railgun S, a little bit before it, and then I watched Railgun S as it was airing. All I remember is that I watched Railgun S as it was airing. That's all I remember. And that came out in 2013, so around that time period is when I watched it, and it's been like my favorite series for years and years. Though recently, I guess just 2017 maybe, I would say Little Witch Academia or Boku no Hero Academia, they're up there too. They might even be above it. But it's a really close race between them. I love the entire Index Railgun franchise, and I'm really excited because Index 3 is getting 26 episodes, which I think is absolutely amazing. I'm happy it's still going to be 2 core like the first 2 seasons, and we're getting a new Railgun season. Railgun 3, I don't know what they're actually going to call it, but I am so excited for that. Because I've always kind of been a bit biased. I like Railgun's way of storytelling better than Index's. Index is amazing. I love Index. I love how we had this big cast of a bunch of different characters, and not all the characters know what's going on with all the other characters. And some of them never learn what's going on with the other characters. It's just this huge world that we get to see, and I love that kind of story writing. But at the same time, Railgun just has this great production quality. Both of the first 2 seasons have, and the way that it told its stories, I guess it maybe benefited from just having a central character being Misaka. I guess it benefited from that, but its way of storytelling was really, really emotional. Like, Railgun 1 is just tears, so many tears all the time. And then the Sisters arc in Railgun S is probably my favorite anime arc ever. The Sisters arc was so good in Railgun S. And I loved the retelling from Misaka's point of view. It was probably better than the original Sisters arc in Index. It's hard to compare the two, but I think the emotion and the fact that the production quality is just so much higher for Railgun makes a difference. And we're getting an Accelerator anime, and I've not read the Accelerator manga, but getting an anime for it, I'm very excited. Yeah, that was some talk for Index, and I guess next we should move along to One Piece. Next up, let's talk about One Piece for a bit, and we actually have quite a few One Piece comments. But let's see what's going on with them. So starting off, I wanted to, I threw in my own comment. I wanted to throw in a theory that I had that I forgot to put in my, I think I might have actually put it in my video last week, but it was maybe the week before last. I again, don't really remember the time frame here, that I had this theory that came to me where we saw this character who was, I called her the sexy snake teacher, sexy teacher snake, the attractive girl with the snake neck and the fangs and stuff. So I think she's going to be Momonosuke's sister. Like I said, we had Momonosuke and all these others sent to the future, but the mom and sister stayed behind, and the sister was a baby. So I think that the baby could have been raised by Orochi, and now she either doesn't remember anything because she was a baby, of course, and either she doesn't remember anything or she doesn't like Orochi, or what seems to be more likely is that she's been raised by him, brainwashed by him. She thinks Orochi is actually right. Or she can remember things or does know what's going on, and she's just faking it like Viola, and she's basically Viola 2.0 character-wise. So that's a thing that I could totally see happening, and just my own theory, I think she's Momonosuke's sister. And it makes sense because the entire reason Viola was there in Dressrosa was that we had Rebecca introduced, and it's like, okay, so what happens if Luffy saves Dressrosa, he saves Rebecca, she's kind of immature, she can't really lead a country right now, so what do? You introduce Viola, who can take over instead, because Viola is more mature and she knows about the runnings of the country already, and this sexy teacher snake lady seems to be in sort of the same position, especially if she's considered to be like Orochi's daughter or something. Even though she's actually the child of the Kozukis. Yeah, that is my own little personal theory there. But Big Will 1919 said, do you think you'd feel different about Big Mom if she knew that she ate Mother Caramel and the kids? For me, it depends on the situation behind it. Because the problem with Big Mom isn't so much that she didn't know that she ate Mother Caramel and the kids, because she was still just an absolute blithering idiot, terrible excuse for a villain before then. She works great as a force of nature, but she's just not a compelling villain. So it depends. If she knew, like, does it change her entire character or not? If it doesn't change her character, I'd probably still feel the same about her. But it depends. If she was told, hey, you ate Mother Caramel and the kids, and she grew up embracing that and became just this evil monster who knew she ate them and who knew what she was doing, and she was like, screw it, I'ma keep doing it anyway, then she'd be a terrible person, but she'd probably be a lot more of a compelling villain knowing what she was doing. I think the big problem with not knowing what she was doing is that it keeps her in this state of just being an idiot who stumbles into being a Yonko, really. She was born big, stupid, and she continued to be big, stupid. And that's basically her entire character. She's big, she's dumb, that's about it. So if she knew that she ate them, and she continued on just being a bumbling idiot, then it wouldn't matter, because it's more to do with her being kind of a poorly done villain in her behavior and character, more than what she does or doesn't remember. So it would depend on if remembering completely changed her character or not. Seek210 said, that was a really good chapter, and pretty cool to see Kaido's Devil Fruit as well. I also think that now the plan might have to change a bit since he's ordering Jack to go get them. It seems they're making Jack be not that strong since he was having a hard time with Shootin' Maru. I also think Shootin' Maru might be one of the samurai they're looking for, and also in one of the panels when he was laying down on the bull, when it was close to the leg, it looked like it had a moon on it. Theo7 said, Jack's very strong, probably at the level of Cracker. Jack's a jobber. Shootin' Maru is most likely Ashura Doji. See the shadow silhouette in the chapter and last chapter. I think Orochi's stronger, closer to Katakuri. I predict Jack versus Sanji and Zoro versus Orochi. Yeah, I'm also pretty sure Shootin' Maru is just one of the ones they're looking for, but he seems like kind of a jerk. He was going to kill an old lady, and his design's really ugly, so screw him. I don't want Shootin' Maru to be their ally. He sucks. But I get the feeling that for this arc, we're not really going to see a lot of those 1v1 fights. We're probably going to see a lot of group fights, because the enemies are super, super strong, and because we have just a ton of characters in the arc right now. I mean, think about what we have in the arc right now. We have the Minks, the Samurai, the Straw Hats, the Heart Pirates. Later, Nekomamushi and Marco's crew will be there. The Marines will probably show up at some point, and the Revolutionaries. And even for just now, to fight against, for Kaido's side, we of course have like Kaido, Jack, and Hawkins and stuff. But we also haven't even seen the other two Calamities, unless one of them is Drake. We still don't know what's going on with Kid, with Apu, with Diaz Drake. So there's still a bunch going on that side as well. And we still haven't seen Orochi or his allies, really. And I also wouldn't be surprised, I've been saying for a long time, I think Gecko Moria will return this arc. Because of Gecko Moria's past with Kaido, and his whole reason that back in Thriller Bark he was creating his zombie crew was because he was making the zombie crew to go get revenge on Kaido, pretty much, because Kaido killed his actual real crew. So yeah. Also, that, and because of the power levels and stuff, Kaido seems so much more powerful than Big Mom. They had to do a group fight to take down Oars, a group fight to take down Doflamingo, pretty much, and definitely group fighting to stand a chance against Big Mom. Like, they didn't really do much of any damage to Big Mom, even with these big group fights, so they're going to definitely need a big group fight to do anything to Kaido. Kaido seems so much scarier than Big Mom. Just the fact that he's basically immortal, he can turn into a dragon. Like, Big Mom was, like, kind of invulnerable, and she had fire power and lightning power from Prometheus and Zeus. But Kaido seems like god levels of offense and still at least Big Mom levels of defense. So he seems even more dangerous. So yeah, I don't see there being any way we can have some serious 1v1 fights this arc. But that is it. That is it for One Piece this week. Next up, quick section for Zombieland Saga. Wanted to say a quick thank you to everybody being so positive about the series in the comments and on Discord and everything. I love the series. It's probably my favorite anime airing this season. And I'm happy that other people are loving it so much too. Now, I've been on my theory for a while that Yamada Tai, the legendary Yamada Tai, is that she's actually awake. She's just weird. It's just this crazy odd theory that's probably not true, but I kind of like it as a headcanon. But Seek210, and I've seen a lot of crazy theories about the show, but Seek210 said, I agree with you now about Tai being awake. Also, she was at least in this episode following the whole dance choreography. I liked Saki acting as the leader, and also how at the end Ai and Junko came at the end and saved the dance. I also noticed that the other characters, minus Sakura, have their memories. And yeah, that was brought up in episode 2, that they have their memories and Sakura doesn't. And Sakura is the only one who seems to have lost her memories, but I've seen a really, really good theory or explanation about it, and that's that they have these numbers. Tai is zombie 0, and Sakura is zombie 1, and the rest go up from there. So what if that's the order they came back in? And Tatsumi wasn't that great at making zombies at first, so we made Tai, and she came out the way she is, because she was the first one ever, and he still didn't have it totally down. Then Sakura was the second one he made at Zombie 1, and so she came out fine, but she doesn't have her memories, and she also woke up earlier than the rest. And the rest were made when he kind of figured it out pretty much, so they all have their memories, and they're pretty good. So yeah, that's maybe why Sakura is Zombie 1 and Tai is Zombie 0, and it might have something to do with why Sakura doesn't have memories. Also, they got kind of into it in this most recent episode about their past and stuff like that, so I want to see if any of them want to look for their families or want to look for, like, where they once were or their stories or how did they die. I brought that up in the episode. How on earth did they die? We know that Sakura was the truck and Saki got into a motorcycle accident. Tai, it's sort of hard to tell because we don't really see her from the neck down too much, and she doesn't have any visible scars or anything on her face. But Yukiri only has one injury on her entire body, and it's the scar around her neck. So it's safe to assume that perhaps she was beheaded. Perhaps it was some dishonor thing and she was executed. Who knows? But it seems she was beheaded. But then you look at Junko and at and at Ai, and Junko and Ai are just kind of cobbled together with a bunch of parts. So it's like, what on earth happened to them? Did they fall into wood chippers? So it might be a bit dark to get into that kind of stuff, but I would be interested if they got into how more of them died, other than just Sakura and Saki being mentioned. I think, though, that because Yukiri's is so obvious, they're probably going to bring it up at some point, even if in just a joking manner, that she was beheaded. So yeah. But that's it for talking about Zombieland Saga this week, I guess. Thank you again for watching, and gonna move on next to the next section. Alright, time to talk about Magical Girl Raising Project, and sorry if it's been like 2 days, I think, since I recorded the first part of the HaQ&A. But I've not felt good for the past few days. Had a bit of a cold, and I got interrupted the first time while recording this and just didn't feel well enough to go back to continue recording. So I've come back to it 2 days later now, and yeah, I definitely want to get this video up and done before I do the first read through for Jokers, and it seems like it's going to go that way. But for this section, I've got some comments to talk about, of course, but mostly it's going to be, because most of the comments I got and most of the discussion I had was about the end of Limited, and my first thoughts on the designs and stuff for Jokers. Most of this is going to be me discussing my thoughts on Limited, I guess a little more in depth, addressing some specific comments, not too many I don't think, and then talking a bit more about my thoughts on the designs for Jokers and what I'm expecting going into it. So yeah, I guess let's start. Before I give my general thoughts on Limited, there was a comment I threw in here first, so I guess I'll get to it first since it's in the notes first, so I don't forget it. But Anime Lover 22ful said, the magical girls who get magical items as an ability were the ones to be screwed due to everyone being able to use it. However, Asari said that the items were just like appliances without manuals, where the magical girl with the originated item can only use it because she knows how it works. For instance, Nanako-san's goggles. People can use it if they know how to use it. And to me, that seems like a very convoluted and screwy point that's only in there to give certain characters items. Like only to give Pukin's sword to Pithy, for an example, because it makes no sense whatsoever to the logic of the story. When the magical girls die, they de-transform. So if their items were part of their power, part of their costume, either way, they shouldn't be able to use it once they de-transform. And so with their death, that item should just disappear forever, really. Like, it makes essentially no sense that the item would still be around. A magical girl's powers go away when she dies. A magical girl's weaponry goes away, or their costumes go away when they die. So it would only make sense that their death would also cause any items they have to disappear, since that is part of the costume or power. It seems like a really convoluted point to have those items still exist even after the girl's death, that's just made up so that they can give, like, Pukin's sword to Pithy and things like that. It seems like, again, I love the series, but it isn't perfect. It seems like a really plot hole of a writing point. It's just really convoluted and makes no sense with anything else in the series. Because, like I said, we've seen them die and their power and outfit goes away, their transformation goes away, so too should the weapon. So I had that before I had some discussion notes, so and that was actually the only one I specifically had, I think. Yeah, the rest were just general discussion things. So time to talk a bit more about Limited. So Limited, I got some comments from you. I feel like the ending was objectively bad. I still love the series, still going to keep reading the series, but it feels weird coming from, again, the series isn't perfect, but Unmarked was really, really good. And Restart was amazing. Restart was so good. And then we get Limited, and it feels weird that Limited, just compared to those two, it's like, what happened to the writing? Everything seemed set up for characters that weren't even really in the volume itself. Like, we had all this stuff at the end where it's like it's for Flea and for Pithy, and for the most part we didn't even see any characters that were in the actual volume show up in the epilogue, basically telling us, yeah, none of these characters were important, you just read all this and none of it meant anything. And the thing is, I was reading this the entire time saying, oh, this is going to be cool, I wonder if it comes back later to mean this or to mean this. And then basically a bunch, like some of you told me afterward, every time I think HY in particular said it, every time I heard you saying, oh, I wonder how this is going to come into play later, I was like, oh. So that's kind of the way it was. And a lot of you have said the same thing, that Limited's probably your least favorite, or Limited's the worst arc. And a lot of you have said that your favorite, I think some people have said that Queens is like their favorite, and some people have said that Queens isn't really good either. So that one's kind of gotten mixed from what I've heard of it. But almost all of you have said your favorite is Restart, Jokers, or you can't choose between Restart and Jokers. Those are like the two big ones, it would seem, that everybody likes the most, and I've heard those two for a while. Even back when I was reading Restart, those two were the ones that would always get brought up as the best. But the thing is, there are some things in Limited, just up to the last video, when I was reading the last half of the last chapter, there were 22 pages left. In those 22 pages, the art could have been amazing instead of really just objectively really bad. It is pretty terrible writing-wise. But it could have been fixed. Just in those last 22 pages, not everything could have been fixed. I mean, Hana would have still been really dumb. And I've said Hana's death was dumb a lot, so I want to really elaborate so that it has actual explanation and stuff like that. Hold on. Just checking my audio since I've been having audio issues. Don't want to lose all of this. Yeah, everything looks good. But Hana being dumb is because Pukin was running away, trying to escape from Rainbow. Okay, so all Hana had to do was sit around, let Pukin run away, and then she would have been alive to help fight in the final battle. But she jumps in and gets killed, and it is for no reason. There's absolutely no purpose. Her death doesn't really push Mana forward any. Mana does things that she was kind of going to do anyway, so it doesn't really push Mana forward any, and it doesn't do anything. She dies for literally no reason, because she says, oh, I jumped in to sacrifice myself and protect the other two. But the thing is, Pukin kills her, and then Pukin keeps running away. That was what Pukin was going to do to begin with, was just run away. If Hana had literally done nothing at all and just survived, Pukin would have just run away. And we have evidence of this, and the evidence is that once Pukin killed Hana, you had Mana and Nanako-san, who are not prepared to fight at all, who aren't combat magical girls or anything. Mana's not even a magical girl. Completely unprepared. Pukin could have easily just killed the two of them then, but she didn't. She killed Hana and was like, alright, and then kept running away, because that was her objective. Her objective was to run away. So Hana died for absolutely no reason. And it didn't do anything for the story. Hana's death was really bad, and changing the last 22 pages couldn't have saved that. But changing the last 22 pages could have made it a much, much better arc by having, what do I have? I had 6 changes I would have made. Okay, so the 6 changes I would have made: have Wed and Live. She's just more valuable to the story alive. She could have been a mastermind character, kind of like Flea, but with less dodgy morals. She could have been an interesting rival to Flea in that way. And she just, generally, her death doesn't do anything, and she should have lived to be developed more. Okay, speaking of development, I'll get off track before going back to these 6 points. Another thing that happened was we got a lot of development for Unmarked, but then a lot more development happened more in episodes. But with Restart especially, Restart developed the girls not only as magical girls during the fighting and everything, but it developed them as humans, as people. We learned about who they were, what they wanted, and even like Melville, we learned a little more about her, I guess, in episodes. But even Melville, we learned more about them as people and what they wanted, what their goals were, why they wanted to live. Individually, we learned all of that in Restart, so we developed them on two different fronts, and a lot of the characters didn't even live as long as they lived in Limited, and they got to develop on two fronts. And then you compare that to Limited, where the characters stayed alive a lot longer, but a lot less was developed about them. They didn't change as much, they didn't grow as much, we didn't learn as much about them as people or what their actual goals were or anything. So they were just way, way less developed, and it kind of showed that it was like, these characters don't really matter so much, which is really sad because some of them could have been great characters, whether they lived or died. So back to those 6 points. Have Wed and live. I judge every character's death by what does their death do to progress the plot compared to if they were alive, what could they do to progress the plot? And typically the deaths are so well written in Magical Girl Raising Project and come at such a good time where you're like, their death does so much more to propel the story than they could have done alive. Like Lapicelle dying when she did in Unmarked does so much more to bring Snow White's character forward, Clamberry's character forward, the story itself forward, than Lapicelle could have done alive, as an example. And the only exceptions I can think to this are Blue Comet Lapis Lazuli. I feel like her death was really good, and at the same level, she could have done a lot more for the story alive. So live or die, she could have been a good character either way. So her death was good. And another one, I'm not going to complain about Tama's death. Tama's death was still good, but Tama could have done way, way more for the story alive than what her death did for the story. Her death just showed the depths that that Swim Swim was willing to go to, how she was willing to take Ruler's word literally and stuff like that. And we had already seen that. We had already seen that with Swim Swim. So Tama's death didn't do a ton compared to what Tama, the character who killed Clamberry, could have done for the story alive, given that Clamberry and her death have been very, very important for every single arc throughout the story. So Tama being alive could have done way more for the story. So that's the only one I'd put like that. But in Limited, there are a bunch like that. Specifically, Wedden, Kuru Kuruhime, and Funny Trick, but I'll get to that. So yeah, Wedden's worth way more to the story alive than dead. First point, Wedden should live. It doesn't matter how, Wedden should have lived. And then secondly, have Kuru Kuruhime live. She could have been the clan tail of the series, never show up again, and I wouldn't be upset because her living would just make more sense than her dying. Her dying doesn't make much sense. Or if she did die, have her death be this big emotional thing where she needs to get redemption, she needs to get revenge for her family, she needs to protect her students, and they didn't really do that. And that's the problem with Wedden's death, Kuru Kuruhime's death, Funny Trick's death. If any of them were written better, they'd be perfectly fine. Even then, Wedden's a little bit sketchy. But if they were written better, it would have been fine. But their deaths were just like, we need to kill this character, throw him out. Their deaths didn't have any weight, didn't mean anything. And when you start doing that, you get more into the Akame ga kill, nothing matters, kill off characters, no weight, no emotion or anything. You start getting into that area of not being very well written. And the third point, similarly, I'm kind of lumping the two together a little bit, is to have Funny Trick either live or have her death be in revenge for Umi, finally giving in to her spirit of adventure, coming full circle from where she was at the beginning with her relationship with Umi and her thoughts on magical girls and everything. So again, have her death be well written, and you could have done that in the last 22 pages, or, because these are all just 6 changes to the last 22 pages that would have fixed everything. So yeah, have her live or have her death be better. But for Kuru Kuruhime and Funny Trick, a better death would have worked, and I think the biggest problem with them is that just like when their deaths were just, we need to throw this character out, death meant nothing, but their deaths were really, really stupid, almost on the level that Hana's was stupid, because you would think that because a lot of the excuses I've seen is, they were kind of new at being magical girls, But you would think, being new at being magical girls, they'd be even more cautious. But rather, they land one attack on Pukin, land one attack and Funny Trick and Kurukuruhime without giving a second to see if she's dead or not. Before the smoke even clears, they just let their guard down, like, oh yeah, cool, we killed her, it's done. Like, you would think that logically they'd keep their guard up until they found out if she was dead or not. It makes absolute, like, even after she was dead, they'd still be on guard, like, oh my god, is she really dead? Like, it makes no sense for them to just be like, oh, okay, yeah, she's totally dead, and then she kills both of them that easily after everything they just did. So, yeah, their deaths were really, really dumb, and again, just like throwing out characters. I kind of just want to forget the last 22 pages of Limited happened, because it ruined so many characters. Wedden, Kurukuruhime, Funny Trick, even characters from other arcs that were doing perfectly fine, like Ripple and Flea and Pithy. It just does so much negative for their characters. Fourth point would be, have Mana be useful, or die. She could die being useful. Have her be useful whether she dies or not. Mana is a character that actually didn't really need to live. Mana, her death could have done just as much to the story as she could living. Mana's probably one of my favorite characters from the entire arc, but yeah, she could have easily died and it would have been fine. But we had this development for chapters ahead that she had these magical steroids. They were going to give her this big boost and make her so much stronger. And we had that development throughout the entire series. So then she finally does it. And it lasts for 15 seconds. How lame is that? That this thing that's been developed for so much lasts for 15 seconds, and in those 15 seconds, Nanako-san, who isn't even a combat magical girl, does more than Mana does. We have this thing developed all arc, and then when this thing that's been developed for so long finally happens, it's 15 seconds of uselessness that Nanako-san even surpasses without any of that development beforehand. So, yeah, have Mana be useful in some way in those last 22 pages, even if it means she dies, would have been an improvement and would have kind of saved her character a bit. The fifth point, have Flea be less of an evil mastermind. Just have her involvement be ambiguous or vague, where we're like, how evil is Flea? How much did she have to do with this? Have it be more ambiguous, have it be more vague, or just leave Flea out of it. Totally scrap that and develop a new big bad who orchestrated it all and will be a future big bad villain. Because having Flea do it makes it seem like Flea's obviously not going to be a big bad villain for the series. And in addition to that, it makes it feel like she didn't really learn her lesson in Restart. It feels like a lot of the development she got through Restart was kind of forgotten for her to go full evil mastermind-ish. So yeah, Flea should have been either more ambiguous, or the person who did it shouldn't have been Flea. It should have been some new big bad character. And then the sixth thing I would have done is to have Ripple retain her memories, because her losing her memories like that seems very convoluted. Pithy being able to use Pukin's sword seems really dumb and convoluted. And Ripple having her memories but being saved by Pithy would make her relationship with Pithy a bit more dangerous for Pithy. It would make it more dynamic. It could make it more dangerous for Ripple, not knowing if Pithy's going to kill her now if she doesn't fall in line with her. So it could be a lot better for the relationship and story if Ripple retained her memories, because a lot of the things with that just seem so convoluted. So yeah, those would be my 6 points. Have Wedden live, have Kurukuruhime and Funny Trick either live or have their deaths be a lot better. Have Mana be useful whether she lives or dies. Have Flea be less evil mastermindy or just not involved at all. And to have Ripple retain her memories, which is kind of like the weakest of those 6 points. But just a change in those last 22 pages could have saved that entire arc, except for Hana. Hana would have still been dumb. Also, I will throw in that using Pukin's weapon, yes, it's total BS. It doesn't make any sense, given the logic we know of them detransforming once they've been killed. So yeah, using Pukin's weapon in general is just absolutely BS. And another thing that I brought up was that it would have been a better story to have Wedden help take down Rainbow, or have Pithy help Wedden take down Rainbow, and then have Wedden outsmart and kill Pithy instead of Pithy being the one to kill Wedden, because that would have been a lot better story, in that it would show that Wedden was smart enough to know that Pithy was too dangerous to keep alive, and it would get revenge for Kurokurohime's family. But in addition to that, it would, even though I guess a more morally pure Wedden would be ideal, she'd be killing a mass murderer, so I guess it's alright. But either way, it would be so good and so wonderfully ironic in that Pithy would actually do good for once. She would actually help someone. She would actually take down the bad guy and then die. So kind of switch Wedden and Pithy's places would do so much more for Wedden's character, showing how she could outsmart Pithy and showing that she'd be willing to get revenge for Kurokurohime and her family. And also, it would be great for Pithy's character in having her do something good for once and then die because she did something good for once. That would be like the perfect way to do it, is just swap the two characters. Yeah, that's it for limited thoughts, I guess. And now for getting into, I guess don't tell me if I'm right or wrong, but this is something I did on Discord that I wanted to share here too, which is my predictions for everyone's powers in Jokers after seeing the character designs. I didn't guess the powers in the character design video, but I thought it'd be cool to guess them here. And I guessed them on Discord. So the way I'm doing things is, yeah, don't tell me if I'm right or wrong, and I'm going by the names of what I think their names are, and my predictions from what we saw. I don't know their actual names. So starting with Magical Olive, and I'm just going in whatever order seems right to me. Magical Olive is something wind related, because I think the 4 Tiara girls are just going to be elemental users. So Magical Olive will be something wind related, Neptunia will be something water related, Shala Gorgon will be something fire related, and Bowsette will be something earth related. I think those 4, it could be as simple and kind of OP as them being able to manipulate that element or produce that element, or it could just be something, again, fire related or earth related or water related that isn't manipulation or production. But it could be manipulation or production. For the one that I was calling Diamond, I think it could be possibly having a body that's as hard as Diamond, or it could have something to do, because it looks like she's holding a mirror, it could have something to do with mirrors, reflecting things, just some kind of mirror power. So that's what I'm thinking with Diamond. Then we had the one I was calling Poison, totally a poison user. I mean, I think it's as simple as that. Or it looked like they had bubbles, maybe like they use bubbles or slime. Poison, bubble, slime, something like that. For Crimson Rose, jokingly I would say flower gun, because it looks like she's holding a flower gun. But jokes aside, I see from her design, the way she's standing and stuff, I would see her power being similar to, because she looks like she's the Red Queen. And of course we have the card person who looks like they could be either Card's army. So if she's supposed to be the Red Queen, I could see their powers being like rulers, Weddens, or Pukins, whose powers were all kind of similar, where they have some level of influence or control over a person's actions with some kind of activation. For Ruler, she had to have her stance and her staff and stuff, and she could control people with orders. For Wedden, she could make promises, and they would have to make a promise with her. For Pukin, she could completely control somebody, but she had to cut them first. So I think that Crimson Rose's power is going to be something to activate it, and then some way of controlling somebody to some extent. Snow White, we already know her power, and that takes us halfway through. For Shufflin, like I said, the one chick looks like the Red Queen, and Shufflin looks like a card soldier, so I'm thinking she's going to be like the Queen's card soldiers. So either there are 52 of her, one for each card in the deck, or she can split herself into 52. I think something like that, or something number related, because we see the numbers on the cards and stuff. I don't know how a number related power would work, but I really think it's the 52 of her thing, one for each card. Like we would have the Ace of Spades shuffling, and then the 9 of Diamonds shuffling, and different ones like that. I think that could be really cool. almost like the Misaka sisters from Index and Railgun. Then cross doily, I have no clue, but I would think produce thread and then knit or sew it together into stuff. It'd be similar to Kuruhime's if she could make things out of her ribbons, but we've seen powers generally like that before. So I think, yeah, she can make thread or like knit or sew it together, or maybe she can just knit and sew things together. So even if she doesn't produce the thread herself, something like that. 11th, I think, is, I would say, Yatagarasu. Sorry, the numbers don't mean anything, but Yatagarasu, I would say, is some kind of prescience or augury, being able to see the future or predict things, because mythologically, crows are symbols of guidance or divine wisdom, and that's kind of what the Yatagarasu is. And I think her design, she has a very Japanese design, she has a very crow-looking, Tengu-looking design, so I think she's based on the Yatagarasu, and so I think she has some kind of wisdom or guidance, some kind of ability to see the future or predict things. That would be my guess. Carnivale, that's actually, I said it was my favorite design. It's the one that I have the least idea about power-wise. Yeah, I think that is the one I know least about power-wise. I have no clue. It could be Breathing Flames, because we saw her doing that, but I doubt it. I doubt it's Breathing Flames. So it's maybe something to do with illusions, because she has that Jester mask, and I kind of associate that with illusionists in games and stuff. Or maybe it's something related to acrobatics, because she's balancing on that ball, and she has a very circus theme. Or maybe those torches she carries around has some kind of special power, like the torches catch on fire and stuff, and she can do stuff with the fire. So yeah, something like that. It could be any of those things, it could be none of those things. That's the one that I just have the least clue with. Vile Plume seems easy. Plant control, I don't know. And the plants look like they have mouths, so maybe the plants can eat people. Her design, I put it in my notes too, that it looks like in the picture of her that she's shooting out thorns too, so maybe her power is just shooting out thorns, or maybe it's just part of her plant control. Then Rice Ball, she has a makeup theme. She has a bunch of those makeup puff ball things. So I guess that she can change the appearance of things with her makeup, maybe change her own appearance with her makeup. We've seen powers similar to that before, like I would compare it to Melville's being able to change color, right? So I would compare it to Melville's. Maybe she can use her makeup puffs to change the way things look. 15th, I would say Count Drako is the second to last one I'm thinking about. She looks like she has a vampire theme, but I also think it looks kind of dragon themed-ish. So I'm going to guess something blood related. I don't know what. It could be drinking blood to gain power. It could be controlling blood. I'm going to just say something blood related because she looks like a vampire. And then the last one I haven't talked about is Rain Frog, and I think obviously weather control. Frogs are associated with rain in Japanese culture. She's covered in frog designs and rain clothes. In the inside of her umbrella is a sunny sky. So all of that together, this is probably the one I'm most confident about, is something weather related. I would say maybe and probably weather control. So that's maybe the one I'm most confident with, is I think Rain Frog is a weather controller. And that would be it. That would be more thoughts on Limited and more thoughts on Jokers. So either way, I hope you enjoyed that. And that's it for this Magical Girl Raising Project section. Time to finish things off with the Tower of God section. Sorry if my voice is totally shot. I have been recording for a hell of a long time. This is going to be a lot longer of a HaQ&A than I expected. Even though I expected long Magical Girl Raising Project and Tower of God sections. Wasn't exactly expecting 30 minutes long for Magical Girl Raising Project. But either way, let's talk about Tower of God. I've got about 2 pages of comment notes here. Not 2 full pages, so it shouldn't take that long. But let's talk about things. Now, I'm recording this after my live reaction to Monday's chapter, this Monday's chapter, chapter 405, just to let you know that. But I haven't done the review yet at the point in time at which I'm recording this, because this should hopefully be up before that review. But either way, I'm starting off with one of my own comments that I wanted to bring up, that I brought up last week, is that I noticed after recording my review last week, I didn't mention Misang's family. Right now, I don't think it's that important of a plot point. That's kind of why I left it out, because it doesn't particularly look like she's from any Ten family that we can specifically say yet. She doesn't have any obvious physical things that would make you think that. She uses physical strength and stuff through Shinsu strengthening, which is a Ha family specialty. But again, we don't have any evidence that she'd be from the Ha family. No black hair or red eyes or anything, though Yura breaks that mold for obvious reasons via her father's appearance. So her family could totally be a future plot point, but I don't think it's important right now. I also hope that she isn't somehow Akraptor's real daughter. Somebody replied to me saying that they believe CU confirmed that it isn't. I think it was actually Dr. Bonehead who said that. So, yeah. I think that I believe them because I'm pretty sure I remember the same thing. But I really do hope that CU doesn't decide to write her as Akraptor's real daughter, because I think that Wangnan finding Akraptor's daughter should be a huge story moment for him. Though I will admit that lately, the way I put it was Wangnan's main character status has been worn pretty thin lately, because he was portrayed as this kind of secondary main character behind Bomb. But lately, he's been less like a main character. We've kind of been forgetting about Wangnan, and he's been really shoved in the background. So yeah, his main character status is wearing really thin. But getting into the first actual comment. Slayer nominee said, "Wait, I thought there were 11 Slayers. Karaka's the newest, achieving the title after White. White stated he was the 10th commander of FUG. I don't follow the blog posts. I'm behind on backstory details." I looked up my sources from when I said there were only, I think I said there were only 7 Slayers. I looked up my sources, and it's from a lore guide that CU did for a fan cafe way back, like years ago, before Viol was even confirmed as Bomb. He said that FUG has 11 Slayer spots to take down, of course, Zahard and the 10 family heads. But currently 2 are reigning, 5 are hiding or missing. The translation for that's a little bit iffy. And 4 of the slots are still vacant. He said that Luzlek is one of the reigning ones, and fans at the time just thought Karaka was one of the reigning ones. But Karaka is kind of doing an undercover type thing, so I don't know if he counts as one of the hiding/missing ones. So I don't know. White is called the 10th Slayer way back in Dollar Show, because the way it happens is Bomb brings up that most of the Slayers are hiding/missing, however you want to translate that. And Elliot responds to him, and in his response he says that White is the 10th Slayer. So because of that, I guess the numbers, that means they don't correspond to the order that they come in, unless they did come in that order and 4 of them have died, leaving their slots vacant within that time somehow. And that's why White would be 10th and maybe Karaka 11th, I don't know. So maybe the numbers don't correspond to that. I don't know what the numbers stand for. I don't know what they correspond to. We know that Luzlek is number 1, Yama is 7, and White is 10. We don't know Karaka's number, we don't know Immort's number. And we don't even know the names of the 2 others that are currently around. And Bomb is, I would assume, supposed to fill one of the 4 vacant spots as Viol. So, yeah, don't know what the numbers stand for, but there are currently 7 if that information still works. Then AlphaCent 007 said, "Also, does anyone know why only 3 out of the 4 divisions are coming? Why not just bring the whole squadron? The last division's so useless." Anthony Scott said the other squad was probably the one that went after Misheni. Or, no, probably the one led by Misheni. But I think that's a completely different thing, whatever Misheni's group was, that was going after Jinsung, because there's probably other squadrons that have their divisions going out to fight members of FUG and stuff. But I think that the other division was the group that was on the floor of test to capture slash execute Yu Han Sung, because they were servants of Calavan, and I had heard before that the translation of servant tier might have actually been something to do with the military ranks. And then, just in the chapter I just read after taking these notes, it was kind of confirmed, because we see that Alpathian is a first tier servant, Sharon is a second tier, so I would assume Chionhe's the same. And then one of the people that's working under Sharon is a third tier, so if they're a third tier, I guess maybe they're the Fonsakal Drak of the first division, or they are to the first division what Fonsakal Drak is to the second division. So that would make me think we saw Tinker Yulche, who was a third, and I guess that would mean Kay and Dorian are third as well. And we saw Yolkner, who was second. So that makes me think if he's second, and Sharon is second, and she's a commander of the first division, Yolker must be the commander of one of the divisions, and Tinker Yulche might be his assistant commander. So I think Tinker Yulche is the assistant commander, like Dorian Frog or like Kulnasam K. And I think that Yolker is actually the commander of one of the divisions, like what Chionhe and what Ari Bright Sharon are. So yeah, that's where I think the last division is, now that we have confirmation on that's what servant means, and they were specifically servants of Calavan. So that's where I think the last division is. The Lazy One said, "You're right about Pedro's ability. It was Purple Dementor, and also the 5 elements of the natives are fire, water, plant, rock, and either crystal or ice. In the whole bomb decision, while I agree he sticks to his guns and he charges in there, at the same time he's up against rankers and high rankers without a plan. It'll backfire quick, or if he's up against rankers and high rankers without a plan, it'll backfire quickly. It's the same as in the Marineford War where Luffy's out of his league." And I like that comparison, because I think, like with Luffy and Marineford, it'll be about the same, where Bomb is going to have the rankers and the high ranker allies he has do most of the fighting against the rankers and high rankers. While he runs through, he might provide support here and there, but he'll mostly fight regulars and people more at his level, because we have all these regulars introduced, and specifically Levy, which seems like Levy's going to kind of be a Bomb rival, at least for this arc. So it's kind of like the Floor of Death situation too, where he helped Mazano fight against Joe, but Mazano did the real fighting, did the actual work. Bomb just provided the assistance that he needed. So I think Bomb's going to be in more of a support role here. Also, thanks for reminding me of the elements. I knew fire, rock, and plant for sure. And I remembered the crystal ice thing, but I didn't know if the last one was water, if it was wind, if it was lightning. Water makes the most sense, I guess. So lightning, that's interesting, isn't one of the 5 native elements, and yet it's something we've seen a lot with the Kun family, so that's interesting. Then next up, the Lazy One said, "That Misang development, also we can see some scout skills from her and the whole arranged marriage with Kay and a daughter of the Yeon family. I wonder which daughter it could mean. The obvious one could be Yeon, but it could be a new character we haven't, or it could be Yiwa, but it could be a new character we haven't seen. But if it is Yiwa, I doubt she'll accept the marriage because of her crush on Bomb, and it might cause Kay's family to hunt down Bomb. One more thing, Akka's ability is combustion, because I had forgot the name of Akka's ability in the video. So thank you for reminding me about that power's name. And also, I kind of hope it is just a random character we haven't met yet, or the person they're trying to take Kun to, which somebody brought up, I don't remember who, somebody brought up that the person they're trying to take Kun to, I believe is a man from the Yi family, which would be pretty rare. So it's a man from the Yeon family, so maybe not. It feels like Yeon, or Yiwa to me, sorry, I always call her Yeon. Yiwa to me would be a bit cheesy and obvious, because it's like, of course you make the one Yeon character that we know, the one that he has a connection to. And Akash Panda and the Lazy One said the same thing, where Akash Panda said, Evan Kell proceeds to dismantle Jay and Wei, but I don't think Evan Kell can use Shinwan Ryu, because only a regular should be able to use Shinwan Ryu. And do you think Kei's fiance is Yiwa? Lazy One said, it could happen, but it could be another daughter in the Yeon family. And Akash Panda said, it being Yiwa would make her story interesting because she already has problems with her family, and maybe she could have a confrontation with her family members. So Akash Panda was right about Shinwan Ryu. It's an irregular thing. So I'm thinking if Evankel can use Shinwan Ryu, maybe it's because her ancient powers let her break the rules or something, because it did seem like she was sucking Shinsu in, which is a hallmark of Shinwan Ryu, I would think, because it's a different way of controlling Shinsu. So I guess we'll see where things go in the future there. And as for Kei's fiance, basically I already said it. It could be Yiwa, totally could, and you make a good point about how it could make her story more interesting. But again, I just kind of hope it isn't, because it seems too convenient for me to have somebody just mention a member of the Yeon family, because all he did was mention, oh yeah, I'm engaged to a member of the Yeon family. To have somebody mention that, and it just happens to be the one connected to Bomb, and the two have that connection between them, I think that, again, it's just too convenient for story's sake. So that's where I am with that. So I managed to get through these comments pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and end this HaQ&A out before my camera runs out of batteries and dies on me and I lose all this. So I hope you did enjoy the HaQ&A and this Tower of God section. If you're still around, if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of any of this, anything you want me to talk about next time around. I should be doing this weekly again. It should be on Thursdays, though it's on a different day this week. Yeah, and it's much later than I even thought it would be. But it ended up longer than I thought, so is what it is. Like, comment, subscribe for any more of this, and follow on Twitter if you want, and any of these other series I was saying in these videos too. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there and stuff for the channel, or I can talk to you there. And if you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us on Discord, it's always fun to talk with everyone there, and it's free and open for anyone, so just ask and I'll give you a link if you want one. That's it. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.